Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Lord, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever. We're singing,
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Charts by TRADEway Basic Training. My name is David Verbruggen. I'm going to be your host today. With me today, I've got Dave Huber Sr. on. He's going to help out in the background. How you doing today, Dave?
Once I find the mute button, I'm doing just great. How can you do anything but great? It's a wonderful day in Texas.
Fantastic. Glad to hear that. Well, guys, I wanted to give it just an extra few minutes before we got started here because we had about 130 or so students on the last training. That was fantastic to see. We're running well below that, but we're going to go ahead and kick it off now. And wanted to hopefully some others join along later on as well. All right, guys. So a quick recap. Last week, we did essentially the out-of-box experience and walked through several of the basic things in Charts by TRADEway to be able to get us to a point where we could use the platform functionally. We kind of knew our way around. We knew how to place a paper trade or even a real trade. And I felt like we moved at a really productive pace. And what I mean by that is I think there was a lot of good learning that took place, and those that maybe struggle with some other trainings out there where things just move way too fast and go way too deep. I think we were able to kind of all stay together and learn things. So I want to continue at that nice slow steady pace again while we dissect some more things within Charts by TRADEway that are here to help us, and some things that we can use practically. So I just want to take our time. I don't want to rush through this. And as I was looking through my plans, everything that I planned to go over today, I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. So here's the deal. And I already told Katie this, and she's on board with this. So here's the deal. We're going to get started on part 2. And we're going to go about an hour, 15 minutes or so. And then we're just going to pause and pick it up again next week, wherever we left off. Because the last thing I want to do is push to get through some stuff and then, miss out on the opportunity to really explain things well and make sure everyone's caught up. So Cheryl, I see your question there. Is a recording of last week's session. I believe that it should have been put in your learning portal. If it's not there, let us know, because I was under the impression that all these are being recorded and put in the learning portal. So yeah, John, I see your question there. I looked at the full screen option. I don't have that option. I took some screenshots of what I do have, and I'm going to be communicating with Ben Russell. He seems to know more about this than I do, but I don't know if it's because I'm on a Mac or what the deal is, but I don't have that option to make it completely full screen the way that you guys like it. So I'm still looking into that. All right, guys. Well, let me check one more question here. Do we need to be signed into our broker to do paper trading and chart switcher? Ronald, no, you don't have to be signed into the broker. If you're signed into your broker, like I am with TD Ameritrade, you get real-time quotes. So that helps, but you can set up a virtual account. And so check out the recording of last week's session to get the instructions on how to set up the virtual account. All right. Well, Dave, if there's nothing else that I'm missing here, then I think we're just going to go ahead and dive in and get started on part 2 of this. Anything you're seeing I need to cover before we jump in?
I think we're doing great. Just if you have a question that you want to make sure gets looked at, put it in the questions and answers. If you just want to make a comment, put it in chart. But sometimes if you put it in chat, things go by so quickly that it may get overlooked. So if it's a question that needs an answer, by all means, let's put it in the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Dave. All right, guys, let's jump in. So here we are again at our home page. I know a lot of us just immediately go straight to the charts tab and look at what the charts are doing. This is kind of our home, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a few things on this home page that I don't want to miss. So again, this is the page that'll load up when you first log in. And we're not going to cover everything on this very first page, but I want to go ahead and just mention some things and show some practical applications for both the industry chart at the top right and then the heat map as well. So let's just explain these real quick. If you've been on the live trading hour with me before, then you've seen me use the industry chart and the heat map a fair bit, especially in crazy market times like this, when we're just trying to find some pretty patterns out there in a market that's just not very pretty right now. But industry chart right here, we're looking at 11 different industries. You can see we've got tech, healthcare, financial services. You can hover over it, it explains it better. Communication services, so on and so forth. So there's all these industries, 11 of them total. And right now, I'm looking at today. You can choose any kind of time frame. I'm looking at today, and here's how you can see the overall industry. How is it doing today? Well, just by looking at this chart right here, I can already tell that overall the market's down, right? I mean, most industries are down to the left here, and you know, a fair bit as well. And so you look at the S&P, and yep, that is confirmed there. We actually opened up a little bit and then went up, hit that line, almost a little kiss goodbye action, and came back down here. So we are down overall on the day. You can see what percentage we're looking at as well. So you take industrials, for example, is down about 1%. That entire industry is down about 1% today. There's only 2 industries right now that are actually up for today. It'd be technology and then just barely energy. The worst one today being consumer cyclical, followed by real estate. So that's kind of how you read this. You can see the percentages at the bottom, and those will change as well. Let me go to a week. Let's see what's been going on in the last week. So you look at the last week, and everything is down except consumer defensive, pretty much break even. I mean, I don't know if I want to call 0.07% up, but in the last week, almost everything's down. And you can see that consumer cyclical taking the biggest hit, down nearly 10%. And you can look at this over the last month as well. You go back far enough, you're going to start seeing energy come out. I know energy's been, there you go. Energy, last 3 months now, energy's been up 10% as a whole. And then consumer cyclical down, was at 23-24% right there. So this is a good way, you know, practically, how do we use this? Well, if we're looking for pretty patterns, we can use this chart right here to see, well, which sector should we be trading in? Real quick, Jose, I'm seeing you're saying your screen is blank. Is everyone seeing my screen? Raise your hand if you are seeing my screen. Okay, a lot of hands are going up. Jose, don't know what to tell you. Maybe you could hop off and then get back on. Sometimes Zoom freaks out. Not sure. So give that a try, maybe. I'm glad most of you are seeing.
David,
Yes, sir.
also, sometimes if you accidentally shrink it, there's a little box up in the top right corner that you can expand it back if it's on another tab. So that may be what he's running into as well.
Okay, are you talking about this go big button right here, or?
No, I'm talking about it when he's looking at his Zoom screen. Sometimes
Okay.
you shrink it down and it just puts it into a small window for reopening. It doesn't actually close it like most windows.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so Jose, maybe try that. Yeah.
Or just shut it down and come back up to work.
Yep. Cool. All right, so I'm moving on here in industry chart. So how do we use this practically? So when the whole market's looking, like this, where it's just kind of ugly. Finally, we're looking like, okay, we might be establishing a downtrend. But for most of this last year, we've been in a squirrel market. It's been not the prettiest. And right when we think that, we know which direction it's going, it kind of changes direction and throws for loops. So it's been challenging. But there have been patterns out there that have been pretty. And so we can use the sector chart to do so. So energy, that's been one that has been moving up in the last 3 months. Even the last 6 months, it's now really up. Look at that, over about 31%. Just in the last 6 months is what energy has been doing. So let's go ahead and find some pretty patterns out there in a market where it's really not that pretty. So this is where I move from here. Once I get my answer as far as which industry I want to look at, I'm going to move down to the heat map. Now there's a lot going on in this heat map, but we can expand the heat map right here with clicking this go big button. So we click on that, and there's a lot going on in here now as well, right? But we find the energy sector. So right in here, click on that. And I need to readjust again, put this at 6 months because we were looking at 6 months time. Let's pull up energy again. Oh, I see what's going on. If it doesn't look quite right, check your filters. See, I've been messing with filters before. And so I've got the percentage change set to a very specific amount. You can just hit the reset filters button. Boom, it brings them all up. So now we're looking at all of the energy companies in the S&P 500, and we can see how they've been doing in the last 6 months. I mean, this is just like any other heat map. The bigger the box, the bigger market share it has. So ExxonMobil, you can see within that box there has a market cap of $271 billion. Chevron, $220 billion. So those guys are going to be pretty big boys within the energy company or within the energy industry, as opposed to, let's look at this little guy, APA Corporation, market cap $10 billion. So that's why the box is a whole lot smaller than these guys. You're also seeing the difference in the colors. Bright green is going to be, up a lot more. You can see this percentage change, the top right here, this little legend. So the greener it is, I guess you could say the hotter that stock has been, or the redder it is, it's been, much weaker. Black of being more of a neutral. So OKE right here, fairly neutral in the last 6 months, down 1.28%, as you can see within that little box. PSX, SLB up a little bit, but nothing like some of these other guys. So a lot of really green options in here. And so you can start taking a look, well, what do we want to look at? Well, let's just start with XOM. Let's click on XOM. It brings up a whole bunch of information here. If you remember these 4 boxes, what they mean, the first box being technical, so that's going to be your chart. Inner circle, that's going to be big boys. Valuation is the stock on discount, and fundamentals. So fundamentals are green, so that's great. And we can just click on the technical button, and that brings us to the chart. That's this real quick and easy way to just pull this guy to a chart. So let's do that. And right off the bat, you can see, don't worry about these lines. Those lines are old and stuff. But you can see that this is a chart that is still adhering to somewhat of a pattern. Looks like the 50-day has acted as support a few times, and it's actually right back down at the 50-day now. So it'll be very interesting to see, will that hold? Will we get a bounce? I mean, if this thing bounces off of the 50-day and that support, then, you know, there's potential trade setups that you could look at. If it breaks the 50, then there's some other questions, you know, then the pattern's broken, and, you know, what are you going to do with that? You might need to wait and see if it can establish another pattern. Earnings is behind us though. But you can see how in a crazy market, we very quickly found one stock. I'm not saying that this is imminently tradable. I'm saying that this is one that I would want to watch. This is one that we could be looking at and see, oh, can it produce a bounce off of what has been support in the past? Because this chart is still heading from the bottom left to the top right of my screen. So it is overall uptrending, higher highs, higher lows. It you know, was really hot here and it has cooled off some, but it has still been moving up overall. That's the overall trajectory. So again, how do we get there? We looked at the industry chart. We found an industry that was pretty hot, came down here to the heat map. It made it bigger. We got the last 6 months selected, and you can choose any time frame. We've reset the filters. You can see all the industries in here as well. There's technology, communication services, financial services, healthcare, so on and so forth. And so you can see also how much weight some of these companies have. Apple, everyone's familiar with Apple. Look how big that box is in relation to most of the other little boxes. That's because Apple has a massive, market cap, massive slice of the overall total pie, as does Microsoft, the Googles, Amazon, even Tesla. And then you get into some of these little guys that is like, well, I got to expand that to see what that is because they're not as big. And then you can also have a pretty decent idea just looking at the colors, okay, well, what's been going well? Communication services, not doing so hot in the last 6 months. But consumer defensive, okay. Healthcare, yeah, some of them okay. Energy, obviously, that's one we just looked at, really good. Actually, energy looks like the best of all of them. Within industrials here, you can see a little section, aero and defensive. Let's go look at that. So aerospace and defensive stocks, there's a few of them in here doing quite well. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. Why might that be? Well, there's a war going on. And so, these are defense companies, and they're going to do better when things around the world are unfortunately pretty poor there. But let's look at that same way. We just click on it, click on the box, brings up the overall stock. Now we still have to do our job as a trader, right? I mean, just because the box is green doesn't mean that it's just good to go. Doesn't mean that we're just going to go buy it. We can look here at Lockheed Martin and we can see that it got pretty hot for a while. In fact, right when the war in Ukraine started, it shot up pretty quickly here. Just kind of been going sideways since then. Now, if things escalated with that war, you'd probably see Lockheed Martin move up. But just kind of been going sideways. But here again, we have used those tools to find a chart that, you could do something with that. There's opportunities that could be had here depending on the skills you have, even when the overall market's just been tanking. Looking at this chart, you wouldn't know that the S&P was down, over 100 points yesterday. It's just like, oh yeah, it's a little down day. It's like it held at the 50, no big deal. So there's charts out there that are still looking pretty good, and we can use these two tools to go find them. So that's just, that's an explanation on those guys and how I like to use those. And that's been pretty helpful. Dave, before we move on, any questions on those that we need to cover? Well, he might be answering stuff in the background, or maybe that mute button got hidden again. Let me take a quick look here, guys. Janet, you're saying, where are the recordings located in the Learning Portal? I don't know where they are in the Learning Portal.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I was muted.
Oh yeah.
But, go ahead.
We were just looking at another question here. Janet was asking, where are the recordings located in the Learning Portal?
I've got a question out to Misty. She's going to get back with us on that.
Sweet, awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to make sure that these are in there for you. Dave, any other questions that we should hit before we move on?
Yeah, Cindy asked, your button on the right shows TD Ameritrade. Mine shows Quote Media Inc. Does that have to do with our subscription type? No. What that has to do is which account you are looking at the time on there. You're down at the bottom left-hand corner. I mean, it says bottom right.
Yeah, it's both.
I think she means bottom left.
Yeah, well, so down here, I've got the green R, and it says quotes by TD Ameritrade. So I'm getting real-time quotes from TD Ameritrade. That's my.
That's what she's talking about.
Yeah, that's a live account that I have only for the purpose of getting live quotes. I've never even placed a trade with TD Ameritrade. I use Tastyworks personally, but Ameritrade, that's the one that I can get live quotes in here. So that's what I do. So I've got this live account there. I just log into it every time. Well, right now you can, there you go. That's that live account. And then I always come in here and I'll put in paper trades for you guys, or here we go. Here's the virtual account that we did last week. So we created this paper trading virtual account last week. And if you remember, we placed a trade and then we got out of it really quickly and we made ourselves $1. Felt pretty good. So anyway, but yeah, so if you have Quote Media down there, it'll just be something else. There's different options again. Within here, you can make all these selections. Yeah. All right. Dave, any other questions before we move on?
John was just mentioning that you use the correct terminology. For example, ExxonMobil is in the oil and gas industry within the energy sector. He's just being picky. He just wants to make sure nobody gets confused on it. So I think that's a good thing to point out.
Sure. Yeah. So within energy, you have, well, looks like they put all of them under oil and gas. See, oil and gas here is covering all of them. But as far as this goes, it's within the energy sector. Some other sectors are broken down more, like the industrials we were just looking at. Industrials, they break it down. Industrial products is going to be this whole section right here. Transportation, air defensive. So even within industries, they'll break it down into subgroups as well.
And Randy is asking, how do I put a moving average on a chart? I think that's something we covered last week, but you might show them real quickly how to put one on, just delete it.
Yeah, we'll go back to the charts in a little bit here
A little
and
bit.
look at some of that stuff. I don't want to spend too much time covering what we covered last week because those recordings either are available or will become available if they're not yet. So again, this is part 2 right here. So if you missed last week, part 1, go ahead and check that out because that it just was from the ground up. You're out of box experience explaining things, and now we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into some of the capabilities. All right. Well, Dave, if we're good, then I'm going to move on to some other areas here. Want to look at so we were here and we covered industry and the heat map. We talked about watch lists last week a bit. I want to go to the Find tab and explain some of these guys in here. So first, let's go ahead and look at the scans. Now, I want to explain a couple things here. Scans and screener within Charts by TRADEway, those are 2 different things. The scan is going to be preset scans in here that you cannot manipulate. The screener can be a custom-made scan, essentially, where you, and we're going to hit that one up in just a second here, or after the scans. The screener is going to be what you can manipulate, where you can manipulate different factors so that you can filter out or screen for stocks that you're looking for. But first, let's jump into the scans and let's look at all the different possibilities here. There's a lot, so I say all, we're not going to look at all of them, but we're just going to give you a good idea of what to look for. So there's 4 categories on the left here. We have feature, so there's different things in here, and we feature certain strategies like Precision Pro, for example. You can find, and I know you guys aren't seeing this yet. This is something that is we're working on turning on for you guys, and I just received an update this morning that will be coming in the not too distant future. So for those of you that are part of Power Spreads or News Moves, or say like Sharpshooter, for example, you will have access to this pretty soon. So let's just look at this real quick. So News Moves. So, and this is updated about every week. It's due to be updated later on today. So this information is about a week old. So if you know the News Moves, strategy, just don't go jumping into this blindly right here. But this is what you will see. You will see a few stocks that have been picked out by the coach that's in charge of that group. So with News Moves, that would be Jeffrey Nance. And these are from last week. These are some tickers that you guys were looking at and considering within the News Moves group. Same for Power Spreads, those that were being considered. Same for Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter's updated about every month, just based off of how that strategy is done. Online study groups, Trader Max, Trader Pro. So that's how these work within here. The ideas button, you can hit that and you can look for, there's all these different categories. Let's say we want to look for stocks that are based off of specific technical patterns. There's several often, honestly, there's so much in here. I haven't had the chance to dive into every single one of these, but it's all these ideas here that should already be available to you if you have the elite version and you go into the scans. So there's different ways that you can look at this. Almost, in my opinion, almost too many. You can get out analysis paralysis if you just keep diving in and try and cross check and look at every single thing. Even a scan here for events, upcoming ex-dividend date within 1 week. Okay, all right, awesome. One of my favorite areas to go to is Outlook. This just keeps it simple for me. Bullish, bearish, stagnant, or volatile stocks. And so within bullish, probably not going to be a whole lot. Look at that. Chart pattern, bullish, ascending triangle. There's 3 of them. Chart pattern, rising channel. So for us, that we call that just an uptrending stock within channel. 27 different ones. So let's look at this. Let's open this up and let's take a look. You can see next ER earnings. So you can see when that's coming up. So well, that one just happened. That one was yesterday, but that one's coming up. So probably want to stay away from ZTO. But you can look at some of these guys, and it's just a nice, easy way to come in and see, okay, what are some stocks that are still rising? Let's look at CLX. You can see that in the it had moved down, but lately here in the last few weeks, it has been moving up. And you could throw lines on there and kind of create yourself a bit of a rising. There you go. Those aren't perfect lines, but a rising pattern, or what's the exact word they used? Rising channel. So that's different ways we can look at this. Now, you're going to find some in here that may not look as good. Again, they're computers that put this all together. It's different mathematical stuff or whatever, and then it comes up with this list. And we still have to do our job as a trader and look at it and see, does that still look pretty good? But it is a good way to sift out a lot of them, because there's over 10,000 stocks out there. And we just use this scan to sift out most of them and come up with 27 possible options that look like they might be in, a rising channel. Let's look at BKI. There you go. Low, high, higher, low, higher, high, higher, low, higher, high. It's been moving up. Now, do we want to trade this thing? Well, I don't know. You have to do your job and see, what do the options look like if you want to use options? Is the bid-ask spread fair? All that kind of stuff. But I just want you to know where that is, find scans, and how you can use that. Strategy here, this would be strategy specific ones that they come up with. So for cover calls, these are some that could be considered for covered calls. Bullish option strategies, bull puts, and if you want some extra information, you can click on the information box. This one, for example, bull puts, identifying stocks above the 50 moving average, and specifically the simple moving average on this one. So there's a lot in here. We could spend the whole time just looking at this, but I don't want to do that. So just want you to know where that is and how to use that. Let's move on to the screener here. The screener, again, is going to be essentially a scan that you can self-create. And so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to see some of the different options that we can use. So, sorry, I'm moving a little bit fast again here. Find screener, and you can go click the new tab right in here. There's a lot of information in here. Don't let this overwhelm you. There's just some, you don't need to look at all this. You don't need to select all of them. There's some very specific ones that I like to use to find what I'm looking for. You can also go 3 levels deep on this. You can just see how it just adds more and more. And there's all this stuff. But we're gonna put one together here, and then we're gonna go ahead and see what that looks like. So maybe let's choose one that has the price. I want it to be optionable. I'm hoping to, side note, I'm hoping to have another one added in here where it has weekly options. So that would be really good, where it just pulls out the stocks that only have weekly options. That'd be good. The score, that would be those 4 colors, those 4 boxes right there. I want to be able to manipulate those. Let's, on the technical side of things, let's choose the 10-day EMA, the 50 EMA, and this will all make more sense when we get to it. If you've never done a scanner on a different platform before, or have done screener before, this will make more sense when we get to the next page. We can look at current price. There we go. 30-day average volume. So let's just start with that. Let's start with that and see what we can come up with. Get my Zoom tools out of the way. So I'm going to apply the criteria, the bottom right here. And you can see there's initially over 10,000 stocks. That's a ton. And we're going to try and narrow that down, and we're going to use these options to do so. So over 10,000 stocks, but let's say I don't want to look at anything that's below $10. I don't want to look at anything that's over 500. So now we've just eliminated not quite half of them, but about a third of all the total stocks, just by choosing the price range between 10 and 500. Yes, I want it to be optionable. So that's already set nicely there. Here's the 4 boxes I was telling you about. Again, technical, insider circle, which would be your big boys, valuation, and fundamentals. And let's just say I don't want to have any that have a red box. So I'm going to unclick all the red boxes. And for good measure, let's just say that the fundamentals box right here, I want that to be green. So not even yellow. So there we go. Now we have already eliminated a lot of different options. 10-day EMA, I'd like that to be above the 21-day. Why not? The 50, I'd like that to be above the 100. That's good too. So we're already talking about stacking EMAs bullishly, right? The current price, let's say we want that to be above the 15-day. And the average volume, you can grab these sliders and move them here, or I just like to type it in. I want to have average volume be at least, say, 1 million. You can just do 1 capital M. And I don't know what happened here. Okay, I pulled that all. Whoop. I must have clicked something on here.
Why don't you do 100,000, see if it changes? 100K.
Yeah. So I refresh.
I think you just.
Oh no, did I get rid of it all? All right, let's throw this back in here real quick, guys. Sorry about that. I don't know what I clicked. I believe that was everything I did. Apply criteria. 10. Okay, and now it's all back in there. Look at that. And 1 million. There we go. Okay, so here we go. So 1 million, and we have 10 left. We're going to run that search. And here's the 10 that show up now. And every single one of them matches all of this criteria. This is just another way, especially in a crazy market like now, that we can go out there and find some stocks that are doing exactly what we are looking for. Just looking at these, there's already a few that I'm recognizing that are already part of the energy industry. And well, that makes sense because we essentially are searching for stocks that are moving up and doing well. And we have several of those in here. Now, let's say that we want to go ahead and let's say we love this screener right here, and I want to save this. Just hit save, enter screener name, and we can name it whatever we want. I'm just going to say bullish. We can even enter a description if we want. And save that. And then if you want to get to that later, when you come back in, you click on the saved button, and there's bullish. You see, I got a couple others that I have put together that I'm still testing out. but the bullish, it'll just bring this up automatically, and you don't have to re-enter the same thing over and over again. So it's just saved there, ready to go. All right, well, now that we've got these 10 right here, what if I want to look at these guys and look at them on the chart? Let's select them. So we're going to come up here to the top right, select this, and I like to just click and select them all. So that's this button right here. Boom, they're all selected. And we're going to hit the beaker button that sends them to research. And now we are here on the dashboard page, and I just move right along to the charts page. And here we go. Now we still have some of these others in here that we're looking at beforehand. So it'd be there's 10 of them that we moved over. So it's the top 10 that we just moved over. And Devon Energy Corporation, again, look at this. That's a pretty decent looking chart. It's moving from the bottom left to the top right. You know, it's uptrending. So we did well there. EOG Resources, again, looking like it's moving up overall. A couple volatile days, but overall still intact. HPQ, not moving up quite as much, pretty stagnant, you know, potentially some rolling action, potentially some ascending wedge.
Like a wedge to me.
Yeah, on the bottom side, and then you could look at it a couple different ways, but you know, that might be one that you're like, I'm just not as big on that one. That's okay. You can just come up here and click the X and get rid of that one. And now we're moving on to MAT. And again, we're not going to analyze all of these stocks right now. That's not the point of today. The point of today is just to show you how this works and what we can do with it. So come back here to the screener. I want to make sure on my notes here that I'm not missing anything. Research. Let's say you love these right here and you want to make a watch list out of them. Okay, we can go ahead and click this button right here, send symbols to select a watch list. Well, I guess I got to select them first, huh? There we go. Select them, and we're going to send them to select a watch list. Remember my faves? We created that last week. Let's just send them to my faves, and we just added all these to my faves. Come back here to watch list. My phase is what the watch list we created last week. You can see some of these that we added in just to show the example. And then you can see the new ones that we added in here as well. That's how you can use the screener. That's how you can send those tickers to the charts. And that's how you can send them to the watch list as well. Good, Janet. I'm glad this is extremely helpful. I think I'm moving through this a little slower than I intended to initially, but I'm glad that this is helpful because that's the whole point of this. So we're going to keep the same pace going so that everyone is able to keep up and learn a few things here. Last thing I'm going to cover in the Find tab, and this will be brief. We've already gone over the heat map. I like to get that from the home market button. But the last thing we're going to do is the calendar. Look at the calendar, and there's a few things we can look at on the calendar. Earnings being the big one. You know, that's what we're always wanting to know. Dividend date and split date as well. So today we have all of these stocks that are going to be reporting earnings. Either they have earlier this morning or they will this afternoon. But earnings date today for all these guys. Tomorrow. Oops, that was not right. Uh-oh, what am I doing? Okay, here we go. You got to click on the thing. I thought you could just click on the box there. Tomorrow, no earnings. Just got 6 of them that are going to have dividends. The next day, you can see on the 12th, one of them is going to have earnings as Disney, and then 17 of them have dividends. And this is within the S&P 500. You can change that in here as well. You could do all equities, only ones that are optionable. It just defaults to the S&P 500 there. All right. Okay, Dave, any questions on any of that before before we move on?
There were a few questions. In the scan section, I have features, ideas, outlook, and strategies. Within these, there are many general strategies, but none are directly related to TRADEway, such as Trader Pro. Is this coming, or are they some of us missing this?
Yeah. So you're talking
So-
about in the feature part, these guys right here. So online study groups, strategies, Precision Pro. And yeah, that's going to be coming very soon. Again, we made progress, a pretty good step of progress this morning on that. So there's a few areas that we're gonna, since we are able to move forward with this now, there's a few areas that we need to train all of our coaches in so that they're able to populate this within Charts by TRADEway. For example, again, Precision Pro, if you're looking at the tickers for power spread or for news moves, I'm going to show them how to put that all in there, but that will be coming to where you will be able to see that if you are subscribed to the support group for those strategies. So it'll be coming.
Similarly, please remind me the study groups are under the features question mark. I am a Trader Pro, but I don't see that list. That's basically the same answer. Is that,
Yep.
am I understanding the question properly?
That's correct. Yep. Trader Max, Trader Pro, and the online study groups, that'll be coming as well. It'll all come at the same time.
And we have a couple individual questions, but like with Jose, I will probably try to get a hold of Jose after this and see if I can figure out where he's missing on that,
Okay.
rather than take up all 80 people. John Oakland is asked, last week we were told the recordings. I'm still waiting on the question for the recordings from Misty. So she should be back with me shortly. Yes, has been recorded. I've just got to figure out how we get it to the students.
Yeah, they are being recorded, and I appreciate you guys bringing that up because I do want to make sure you have access to this. So we're gonna, one way or another, we're gonna get this to you. I'm gonna make it happen. So, all right. Well, let's move on and look at a few more things within the charting page. Last week, I gave a it was pretty brief, just kind of overview of different things that we can do. And I'm going to just expand on that some different things that we can look at in here. But real quickly, let's cover the secondary indicators of the EMAs. I believe the question came up, how do you add in EMAs? So within indicators right here, near the top right, you have upper indicators and lower indicators. The difference is the upper indicators are going to be up on the chart right here. That's your EMAs or volume here. Your lower indicators is literally just lower on the screen. You just got to scroll down below. And then I've got, stochastics, MACD, other stuff here. So, but to add a secondary indicator for EMAs here, they're going to be upper, right? Because it has to be on the chart. So you just come up here, click on exponential moving average, and let's throw the 300 on here. That's one that I don't have on the chart already. And sure, we'll leave it purple, and let's do a dashed line. So purple dashed lines mirror 300. I'm going to add that. And well, this wasn't the best chart to do that on. It's kind of hidden in there. Let's go to the overall market. There we go. So you can see here that I've added that in here. Actually, you had a nice bounce off the 300 right there. And then helped to be a resistance right in there as well. So maybe that's one that I should leave on my chart. But that's how you add in an EMA. A couple things I want to show in here as well. If you have, I've got a lot of lines going on here now. So what if there's some things that you just want to, declutter and just get a better look at things here. So there's these eyeballs. And I don't remember if I covered this last week or not. If I did, then we'll just review this. But you click the eyeball and you can hide this. So let's hide the 5. Let's hide the 10. Let's hide the 100 and 200. There we go. So now we're left with the 20 EMA, the 50 EMA, and that new 300 EMA that we created. There's no really rhyme or reason to this. I just selected some and got rid of them, but you can see how this already declutters it. Same with the lines. You can see I had a bunch of lines drawn on the screen here, and there's this eyeball button right in here, hide or show annotations. Got a bunch of lines. And if you want to get rid of those for a second, but not really get rid of them, you just hide them, clicking the eyeball button there. So that's some things that you can do to help see things better the way that you want to see them. Time frames. There's some, you'll see that when you first log in, there's a few time frames that are just kind of defaulted in there, but you can add more as well. Let's say I really want to look at a 5-year weekly chart. I can come here, 5-year weekly, I can select that. And now we are looking at 5 years worth of time with each candlestick being a week. You can see the COVID crash very clear there, and then our V recovery and the craziness that happened afterwards. And here's where we are now. But what if I want to have that as a button up top, just one of those easy buttons instead of having to come in here every time? So we come here 5-year, weekly, and we're going to star this. All of a sudden, I have my 5-year weekly chart. I can go, there's a 3-year and back to the 5-year weekly chart. It is now up there. Now, guys, throw it in the chat. Remember, whenever you make changes here and you want this to last, like the 300 EMA or the time frames, what do you have to do? What do you have to do to keep this? I know someone knows it. There it is, John. You got it. You save it. So you come right up here, save chart profile, and then you would click save. Or you could create a new profile. Like, hey, I actually like this view, so I'm going to create a whole new profile. And let's just do that. Save as new profile. Let's see what, there we go. Let's click save, done. And now you can see that it's new. Oh, it kind of doubled it up there. Look at that. So this is what I was on. But now I can click on new, and here we go. We've got everything in there with all the additions. All right. A couple other things we can do as far as time frame goes. You see this big bar right here. Well, let's say, let's first of all, before we get to that bar, you can just click and drag to look at a time frame. Let's say I want to look at this COVID crash in more detail. Just click and drag. You can see the highlighted area. Now I release, and it's going to bring this up. You're still on a weekly chart. You're not seeing the full 5 years right now. Again, here's that 5-year span at the bottom. And we're just looking at this, what is that, 1 year's worth of time, maybe a year and a half or so worth of time right there. And I can move this. I can make it a little bit bigger. I can adjust it. This platform has so much customization built into it. You can do a lot with it. Let's say I want to move 1 week at a time. This maybe be more like you would do with a daily chart, but right up here at the top right, I can click to the right and I can move simply 1 candlestick at a time, whether that's weekly or daily. Let's look at that on the daily. So let's do, I got a 3-year daily chart right here, right? So I'm going to load that up. Let's zoom in here. Actually, let's zoom in a little bit more. And now let's pretend like you're paper trading, just moving 1 day at a time. So that's one way you can do that. You can back up. So different things you can do there. Drawing tools. Let's look at that a little bit more. I don't remember if we covered a parallel channel. So, we all know about the regular lines now that we can draw. You can delete those if you don't like the way that looks. Let's get rid of some of our EMAs and let's show the parallel channel. I said get rid of some. I guess I got rid of all of them, huh? There we go. So within this button right here, you got the parallel channel. There's a few different clicks we can do there. So let's start here. You would click and release, pull it over, click and release, and then there's a third one, click and release. And now you've got your parallel channel uptrending. You're like, well, I don't really like that red there. Okay, that's fine. You can click on that. You can choose a different background color. Maybe you want it to be green. You can save that. And you're like, well, I don't want any color. That's fine too. Grab the transparency button and move it all the way to the left, and it's going to be fully transparent. There you go. No more color in the background. So, sometimes you'll see coaches, we might draw 2 lines up here, or we'll actually use the parallel channel to help us out as well. If you've been on the live trading hour, you've seen me draw boxes for credit spreads or debit spreads. So right up in here, you can do a text box, you can do a circle. I like the rectangle. So let's create a rectangle. Let's say, and I know I'm on the S&P right now, but you can pretend this is any chart. We're just doing this for example. Let's say I have a credit spread here. And then, that'd be your short strike, your long strike, the day you entered, and then your expiration date. This is a good way for me to visualize what I'm looking at. What I like to do for a debit spread, say that's your debit spread. And then I like to come in here just so that I know what it is and make it a different color. There you go. And you can make that any color you want. Oh, I don't know what happened here. Why am I not able to make any changes? Sometimes with a browser, it might freak out on you a little bit. So then you just refresh the screen. But here we are. If you want to change the color of this, say you want yellow, for example, you can do that as well. There you go. All right. All right, we talked about the eyeball to declutter things, and you can always bring that back. Again, as I refreshed, it brought that all back, which is fine. Any other questions on the chart before we move on, or how we look at things on the chart?
Ron said he received an email with the link to last week's recording. So check your emails for last week's recordings.
Okay, good.
On there.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I said I'm glad that at least that went out. I believe they'd be in your learning portal as well. Maybe that's still coming, but I'm glad that the link went out with the recordings.
Yeah, I checked my learning portal. It wasn't there, so that's why I was asking Misty on that. How do you move the average? You've answered that. One of the things that they were going to ask about is an iron condor, and I think you're coming up with how to place trades a little bit later, are you not?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll be. I don't know if we're going to get to that today, but I'll at least give a very brief overview of the options chain, and then if you know how to place an iron condor, you'd be able to get it from there. But the more in-depth stuff on options will probably have to be moved to next week because there's a lot to cover there. But we'll do a brief overview on that today.
Answered that one. I'm going to get with the people who are having trouble with that. How do I answer that? Last week we were told the recordings. So I think we're all caught up on questions, it looks like.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I know a big part of many people's trading is alerts, and I wanted to cover alerts real quick. So let's just pick this Devon Energy Corporation. Let's come in closer time frame. Let's say we want to place an alert if it breaks this line right here, right? So about $65 level. Let's pretend I want to alert if that breaks and goes above there. On the left side right here, you've got this box that might be open, might be closed. You can open that. You got some information here. You got the 4 boxes. You got a bunch of other information, buy, sell button. You also have right here, add alert for symbol, send symbol to select a watch list, or even add notes about this symbol. So many different things you can do. Let's dive into the alerts. So you can click on that and you can simply create an alert here. If you've done alerts before on other platforms, this is going to be fairly easy to figure out. I mean, we're simply looking at the stock. That's the ticker that you want. And we want it to be above, what do we say, $65 active. And you can even put an expiration here. So you'll get an alert that goes above $65 up until the November 9th of this year. Or you can change that. You know, maybe you only want to know it if it happens this week. You can make that change for the 13th, this Friday. So different things you can do there, and you can type in notes as well. You know, maybe like buy signal, you know, bring your attention back to it. And then you can save that if you want. Now, here's the thing with the alerts. Let's go to the alert page. So that's gonna be under research and alerts right there. And then you can see our alert that we just placed. Last above $65, buy signal. It has not triggered yet. When an alert triggers on here, you'll get a push notification on your computer right now, or if you're looking at the charts tab, it'll pop up on charts by TRADEway. When we have the app released, and we're in the final stages of the app right now. So once that releases, then you'll be able to get push notifications to your phone. That'll be a big game changer, because if you're like me, I'm not in front of the computer all the time. And so with the current setup, I might easily miss an alert. But once we can get that app and have push notifications to the phone, that'll really help, you know, bring my attention back to the screen when I need to. So that kind of shows you how you can just come right in here to the alerts page as well and just put one in from scratch as well. I like to do it from the chart myself, but it shows you how, it shows you where, and this part will get better when the app comes. Okay. Now let's start looking at some of the options. And again, we're probably not going to get through all of the options portion of it today, but let's at least dive in here and see how far we can get. So let's look at, you know, if you're at Devon Energy Corporation, for example, and I want to see what do the options look like on this guy. Come up right here to the options tab and click on that. First thing it's going to pull up is going to be all the expirations. Now, a lot of us, you know, we might just click on an expiration, say June 17th, hit OK, and just move on. But I don't want us to miss. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was playing with that this morning, and that expiration box didn't show up. But if it doesn't show up, you can just click on the box that says select expiration.
Oh yeah, right here.
Sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, that's another way to do it. If it, for whatever reason you're going through here, doesn't show up, expiration cycles, that'll pull it up as well. So here's all the expiration cycles. The starred ones are monthlies. If they're not starred, that's going to be a weekly. But let's hang out at this box real quick, because there's a lot going on here and I don't want to miss this. First thing, let's go ahead and look at this IV bar right here. Not thinking of the right word right here. And actually, that one's not showing very clearly. Let's pick a different one. Okay, let's go with this one right here. So the implied volatility is what the IV is that we're looking at right here. And this essentially is going to be, to keep it simple, is the option expensive or is it cheap? If the implied volatility is lower, it's going to be a cheaper option. If the implied volatility is higher, it's going to be a more expensive option. The two numbers you see here, 34 being on the low side or 61.5 being on the high side, is going to be your range over the last year. So 34 is the lowest it was in the last year, and 61.5 the highest that it was in the last year. The kind of the shaded area in the middle is kind of your average range, with it now at this time being at 51.89 right here. So we're up at the high side of average, so the options on EOG are a little bit more on the expensive side. They're not as expensive as they have been, but they're a little bit more on the expensive side. If you're not familiar with implied volatility yet, that's okay. Don't get lost in the numbers. Just look at it as, your low for the year, your high for the year, your average, and where you are now. And then just relate that to are the options overall cheaper, or are they overall more expensive? And these numbers are also spelled out on the left right here. Your current implied volatility is 51.89, your average being 42. And then you've got your high and your low, and then your IV percentile. So with the low being 34 and the high being 61, right now we are 64% up from the low. So it's about 2/3 of the way to the high there from the low. So that's this portion right here. Moving on to the next gauge would be liquidity. Another way to look at this is tradability, because it's not only looking at the open interest, it's also looking at bid-ask spreads of your near or at the money strikes. So if this gauge right here is down in the red, you might want to be careful of that. It might be something where you can get into that trade, but you have a hard time getting out of that trade. We would like for this liquidity to be in the green. It's easy to get in and out of options then. Overall, the bid-ask spreads are probably going to be more fair than if it was in the yellow or the red. So that's probably the easiest gauge to understand, and also honestly the most important gauge as far as I'm concerned. If you don't understand these other two, it's okay. Look at the liquidity. That's going to help determine if we should even be considering this stock for options or not. All right, the skew, this is going to be your call put skew. This one can be a little bit confusing to understand at first. So let's do something real quick to help learn this gauge right here. First, pretend that this indicator is not here, that red indicator. Pretend that's not there, and only look at this arc. So we're looking at this gray half circle, and you got the little black notch in there, okay? So if you remember, the calls are on the left side of the options chain, and the puts are on the right side. Now we look at this arc, and you can see that there's more room on the left side of the notch than there is on the right side of the notch. So more calls on average are traded than puts. This arc and that notch, or the notch specifically, is looking at the average. So on average, we have more calls traded than puts, because the calls are on the left side and the puts are on the right side. Now we add in the indicator, and we're no longer looking at the average, we're looking at right now. And right now, it is almost dead even calls to puts. There's still a few more calls traded. You can see how it's just slightly pointed to the right. So a little bit more room on the left, a few more calls traded than puts, but it is below the average. So what does this mean? Well, on average with EOG, people are pretty bullish on EOG. On average, they have been. There's more calls traded than puts. But lately, it's gotten more even, if you will. And lately, we are trading less calls than what the average has been. So people are maybe becoming less bullish on this chart. I wouldn't say it's bearish yet. I mean, we still are at either break even or it's a little bit more towards the call sign. If all that confused you, then don't worry about that, because honestly, call put skew, it can be good to know. It's an indicator, but it's not the end of the world. Like it's not one of those things that like you have to know to be able to trade options. But it's on here and it's on the screen. I wanted to explain that as best as I could there. The accelerator has to do with how quickly is the options volume activity coming up. So if this indicator was right in the middle right here, then the number of total options traded would be pretty average. If it was to the left, then the total number of options traded would be it would be coming up slower. Right now, it's pretty far to the right. So there's a higher total average of options being traded. So you can see that with the accelerator button as well. Now, one other thing I want to mention here with this, because parts of this are, like liquidity, pretty cut and dry, but the skew, even the accelerator sometimes, or implied volatility can be challenging to understand sometimes, especially if we're new. You can click on this button right here, the little tiny question mark. You click on that, and that brings you to a video that is done by iVest. And they're the ones that created this. And this is about an 8 or 9 minute video that explains what I just went over. So you're going through this, you're like, man, what was that call put skew thing again? How does that work? You can click on this, you'll get a really good explanation again. Just want to explain that. Last thing I'll explain on here, we have standard deviation on the very right side. That was something that wasn't there initially. We specifically asked that to be added in, and they did do so. So standard deviation, again, we were playing with this June 17th expiration, plus or minus almost $20 for the standard SD1. And then I believe if you click on here, it's shown as well. There it is, standard deviation, almost $20 right there.
And just a quick question from me to you is you have the IV bar at the top of the last screen, but then along each of the expirations, it has an IV percentage. So is that bar the average over all of the option chains going out there, or how does that work? Because it says the high is 61.59, but the ones that expire this week, it's 67.19%. So a little confused on that. What's the difference between the column and the bar?
Yeah, that is a good question. That might be something that I have to go research. I don't want to take a guess at it.
If I were to guess, I would probably say that bar averages all of the different expiration dates.
I think you're probably right.
Only one above and some below. So that would be my guess, but I think that'll be a good one for us to research for next week's class.
Yeah,
there are a couple little questions that have been brought up. Are we required to be logged in to receive alerts on the phone? I'm saying no, because most of the time you would set the alert from your computer and then you're out running around when you get your alert. So should not have to be. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, again, when it comes to the app, we don't have the app yet. I don't have the app even. It's in the final stages of being put together. And so I don't know all the ins and outs of the app. We'll probably have to do a whole nother, charts by TRADEway application training whenever that does come out. So I don't know, but usually, I mean, if it's going to be set up like how others are, you don't necessarily need to be logged in on your phone to the app for the notifications. I mean, I think that's the whole point of the push notification, is that it pushes through and notifies you regardless if the app is open on the phone or not. So I would hope that's how it's set up. But I haven't had a chance to play with it yet. So.
And just for everybody on the list, some of you apparently did not receive your email that has the link to last week's. I just put it into chat. So just copy that link and that will get you to last week's recording of this session.
Great. All right, Dave. Well, I don't want to move on from here. We're at about an hour 15 mark. So if there's other questions that we can answer, then we can go ahead and answer those before we wrap up here. But I'm putting in a note right here in my notes, saying where we paused. And next week, we're going to get more into the options chain and see how to customize that and look at some different things. But yeah, like I said at the beginning, we're just going to go at a nice, decent, slow pace here and then see how far we get. And we did pretty well, actually. But I think this is a good place to stop, ending with this section right here. So before we close it out, any other questions that we can answer, that I can answer?
Do you know how many characters are available to the alert? When the option comes, when it comes out? Probably not, since we don't have the app yet, but have they suggested how many characters they can put in their notes?
Oh, how many characters? I see what you're saying now. I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few in there. There you go. See, it just keeps going. Is that, I believe that's what you're talking about, right? Okay, it just ended. So however many that is, oh shoot, I got it. So however many that is, that's quite a bit in there. But yeah, I don't know the exact number.
Just type until you get to the number, then you'll have that answer. You know, most people are going to put in such a long note that it'll matter. But if you're concerned about that, just type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll be able to see how many it actually comes out to be.
Yeah. I've never been one that's thrown a ton of notes into alerts. You know, I just kind of just 1 or 2 word things to jog my memory to look at something. But yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know the exact answer on that though. All right, what else we got, Dave?
Just a couple people thanking us for that. Let's see. Answered live, done. Grants explained the upper bar represents all of the options for all of the expirations. So that kind of goes right back to our question on there. John answered it for us.
Okay, great. Great. All right.
I don't see how to choose a call or a put on there. We're going to get into that next week when we get into the option chains.
Yep.
So it'll show where the delta is and all of that. So John, you've got a date for next Tuesday, 11 o'clock to get your answer.
Yep.
Email, we've answered that live. Where is the refresh button? Where is the refresh button? That's something you can click on pretty easily.
Oh yeah, it's not within the platform itself. It's just on your browser. So I'm on Safari. So I just click the refresh button up here. Some places have it at the top left there. But it's just on whatever browser. See, there's one of the nice things about Charts by TRADEway. It's you don't have to download a program to your computer, and that program may or may not be like TC2000, I believe, did not work well on the Mac. So I had to download another program to get TC2000 on the Mac. And then it honestly kind of jacked up my computer. So I had to get rid of all of it. Thinkorswim, I could download on, you can download onto a Mac or a PC. Charts by TRADEway, you're not even downloading anything onto anything. It's all browser based. So anywhere, you can go, let's say you're staying at a hotel somewhere, you forgot your computer and you just go down to their little business center or whatever room, and you pull up the internet and you can go log into your Charts by TRADEway account, because it is all based off of, the internet there. So it's not something that you have to have downloaded onto a specific computer. So there's definitely an advantage there. Maybe one of the disadvantages you could say is that, they're having to figure out how to play with all these different browsers out there. So Safari, Google Chrome, Internet Explorer. And so there's a couple times where maybe the platform gets hung up a little bit, and then you just got to refresh, and that fixes 90% of everything that might look a little bit glitchy there. So yeah.
I wanted to give them a quick thing that shows a real interesting deal. Go to Twitter as your option there. EWTR.
All right. Looking at the chart, or actually in the options chain?
Go to the options.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the liquidity.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's as low as it goes. All right, guys, pop quiz. Should we be trading options on Twitter? Probably not. Twitter.
Well, it has, but it does have more than the 100 open interest.
Yeah, but I would imagine, let's look at that, right? So June 17th, the open interest is good. And a bid-ask spread is decent as well. I wonder why why it's showing.
Because the buyout.
Yeah, I know the
buyout,
buyout's
sure.
happening. Oops, there we go. And so that could be messing with things. Yeah, lots of weirdness going on with that, because they're like in that whole transition with the buyout. And so, when there's something that I don't fully understand, I just kind of stay away from it. So yeah.
And Ron is asking about, what about the security on those public internets? You feel comfortable with that? Going down to the hotel business center and signing into your account.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, I would make sure you log out afterwards. When it comes to like network security and stuff, I literally know nothing about any of that. So I wouldn't know how to answer, but here's what I can tell you. If you have a question about stuff, then and I don't know, or if you want to maybe get a quicker answer, you can come up right here to the help center and put in a support ticket. And there's or even on your name, feedback or request, support tickets there as well. Contact us. There's multiple ways that you can go about this. And let's say you do a support ticket, you can do just a general inquiry. So you throw in your email address, your name, a general inquiry, you type in, hey, since this is browser based, what's this network security look like if I'm in a hotel or using a different computer? And someone that actually knows something about network security and can answer that question for you will be able to get back to you and give you a solid answer. So even though I don't know the answer to that question, hopefully that's a good place to direct you.
And Gordon obviously thinks a lot like I do. I always have a hotspot on my phone, so that if push comes to shove, I would much rather access that through the hotspot on my phone than through public Wi-Fi.
And most people are like that now. As I was mentioning the business center and the hotel, I was kind of thinking back in my head, do people even do that anymore? I mean, that's probably going the way of the payphone, right? So I don't know if that's something that's still being done out there, but yeah, hotspot on the phone, most of us probably have access to that. Most of us bring our own computers. So, yep.
Several people are suggesting using a VPN on your computer or phone.
Yeah.
Private.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I'm not too familiar with the VPN. Honestly, I'm really not a computer guy, believe it or not. which is why I like Charts by TRADEway, because it's pretty simple. Like getting around this platform is not that bad. Think or swim. I mean, I wasn't swimming at first. I can promise you, I was sinking and drowning. It was not think or swim, but Charts by TRADEway is going to be a better platform for that. And that's why I was able to do that. So, all right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Again, next week, we're going to start off just a quick recap of the expiration page, and then we'll move into the options chain and go from there. Thanks for being on, guys. Thank you, Dave, for knocking out all the questions in the background. And
it's been a learning experience for me. I really appreciate having the opportunity to just go with this. Several of the students commented that they really appreciate the slower pace because of the videos that are on the that Rance does. He is an incredibly smart person, and he knows the product so well. He doesn't necessarily know what we don't know. And from a teaching point of view, that's really important. And luckily for you guys, Dave and I are fairly new to this too. We just got this the beginning of the year as well. So we know some of the troubles that you have learning from the video. So hopefully, I love the way Dave brings this step by step and goes piece by piece so that each of us understands. If you have any questions, email them to support@tradeway.com and we'll work from there.
That's great, Dave. Thank you for that. And again, yep, support@tradeway.com will work, or that support ticket general inquiry area that I talked about before. Either one will work for your questions. So that'll wrap it up for today. We'll pick it up where we left off next week, and we'll just go from there. We should be able to knock out the rest of part 2 next week, and then we might even move into some of what I had in part 3. I might revise that some as well, or consolidate that. So, all right, guys, well, we'll see you next week, and thank you for being on.